My name is David. I am 41, and for almost 20 years I lived in Denver with my wife, Sarah. We met in college, the kind of love story that people like to use as proof that soulmates exist. She was studying literature. I was the kind of man who thought hard work could replace poetry. She said she loved my steadiness, my quiet certainty. I loved the way she made ordinary things feel significant, the way she could turn a grocery list into a plan for a future. We married at 24, in a small church with bad lighting and good intentions. We didn't have much. An old car, a rented apartment, and a belief that love could outlast exhaustion. A few years later, we bought a small house on the south side of Denver. It wasn't perfect. The foundation cracked every winter, and the pipes moaned like they were haunted. But it was ours. Then came the children. Michael first, cautious, observant, a boy who watched the world before touching it. Then Lily, loud, bright, fearless. Together they made our lives feel complete in that fragile, temporary way all young families do. We took photos at the park, hosted birthdays in the backyard, painted the living room 3 different shades of beige before realizing we didn't care about the color. For years, I thought that was happiness, the slow accumulation of ordinary days. A constant figure in our lives was my oldest friend, Brian. We'd known each other since childhood, the kind of bond you assume time can't erode. Brian was the extrovert to my restraint, the storyteller to my silence. He was good at people, good at charm, good at finding the pulse of a room. The kids loved him instantly. He brought jokes, small gifts, magic tricks that left them wide-eyed. Uncle Bree, they called him, their laughter chasing him through the house. Sarah laughed too. Freely, easily, the kind of laughter that used to belong only to me. I never questioned it. Why would I? Friendship is supposed to be immune to suspicion. And Brian had been there through everything, the move, the birth of our children, the years when money was short and sleep shorter. When Sarah's mother passed, he was the one who mowed our lawn and left casseroles at the door. When I got promoted, he took us all out to dinner to celebrate. I told myself he was part of the family. Maybe that was my first mistake, believing that anyone who smiled could be trusted. Our marriage moved through seasons. The early years were full of noise and effort. The sleepless nights, the arguments about bills, the quiet reconciliations that always felt like proof we could survive anything. Later, things grew softer, quieter. We had routines instead of adventures, conversations that circled the same safe topics. Work, the kids, dinner, schedules. I thought peace meant love had matured, that calm was a reward for endurance. But sometimes calm is just the stillness before something breaks. There were small moments that should have warned me. The way Sarah started turning her phone face down on the counter when I entered a room. The way her smile seemed to linger a little too long when Brian made a joke. The way the air between them felt charged, somehow. But I dismissed it all. Paranoia was for insecure men, and I prided myself on being steady. Steady enough to trust. Steady enough to look away. When I worked late, Sarah texted that Brian had dropped by to check on the kids. "He's like a brother," she'd say. "You're lucky to have a friend like him." And I agreed because I wanted to believe that loyalty meant safety. There's a special blindness that comes with love, a refusal to look at the shadows because you built the walls that cast them. I didn't want to see what was changing. I wanted to believe that my family was solid, that years of work and patience could protect us from the cracks that ruin other people's homes. I built my life around that illusion. Our house was the picture of balance. Framed family photos on every wall. The scent of Sarah's perfume lingering in the hall. The hum of a dishwasher full of plates from another shared meal. To the outside world, we were the model of what endurance could look like. Friends would say, "You two make it look easy." I'd smile and nod, proud of a peace I thought we had earned. But peace built on denial is just silence wearing its Sunday clothes. Looking back, I can trace the exact places where distance began. The mornings when she stopped kissing me goodbye. The evenings when she stayed out running errands a little longer than usual. The laughter that came from another room, hushed too quickly when I entered. I remember one night, a small dinner at home with Brian. The kids were asleep, candles flickering low, the wine bottle half empty. Sarah leaned across the table, touched his wrist when she laughed. It was nothing, a gesture too small to matter. But I felt something cold move through me, the kind of instinct that comes before reason. She caught my eye, smiled, and withdrew her hand. Brian filled the silence with another story. I told myself I was imagining things. That's how illusions survive, not because they're perfect, but because you need them to be. I worked harder after that. Overtime, business trips, late nights at the office, all under the banner of providing for the family. But truthfully, I was hiding inside the comfort of work, where numbers made sense and loyalty didn't break down over wine and laughter. When I came home, Sarah would be asleep, the glow of her phone still faint under the sheets. I'd stand in the doorway, watching her breathe, wondering if I'd already lost something I hadn't noticed leaving. The children never saw the fracture forming. Michael still hugged me goodnight. Lily still left her drawings on my desk. Life continued, birthdays, bills, holidays, all moving forward on the momentum of habit. I think that's the cruelest part of betrayal. How ordinary everything looks before it collapses. There were still good days. Laughter, shared meals, the warmth of old memories. Enough to keep me believing that we were just tired, not broken. Enough to convince me that love could survive small absences. But love doesn't die all at once. It decays quietly, like fruit left too long on the counter. Still bright on the outside, hollow beneath the skin. By then, I'd started to feel like a guest in my own home. Not unwelcome, just unnecessary. Sarah's laughter belonged to someone else now, though I didn't have the courage to admit who. If I had known what was coming, I might have looked closer, asked harder questions, demanded answers instead of explanations. But hindsight is the cruelest teacher. It only gives you clarity when it's too late to act on it. At the time, all I saw was a family that looked strong, a wife I still loved, a best friend I still trusted, and a silence that grew larger each day, swallowing everything I thought was certain. Looking back now, I realized that what I mistook for peace was just paralysis, the stillness of a man afraid to face the truth. Every illusion looks solid until you lean on it, and by the time I finally leaned, the foundation was already gone. Started so quietly I almost missed it. That's the danger of small betrayals. They never arrive dressed like crimes. They come wearing the face of routine. Sarah began working out again. Not unusual on its own. She'd always been conscious of her health. But she started leaving the house at odd hours, claiming the gym helped her clear her head. Sometimes she'd return flushed, energized. Her eyes lit in a way that didn't match exhaustion. I told myself not to read into it. A husband should trust his wife, that's what I believed, and belief can be a kind of blindness. Then there were the messages. It began with laughter, the soft, private kind that comes from the glow of a phone screen. She'd sit on the couch, scrolling, smiling to herself. If I asked what was funny, she'd say, "Just a meme Brian sent." His name slid out of her mouth easily. Too easily. I smiled back. I even laughed with her. That's how denial sounds. Polite, agreeable, like a man pretending not to taste the poison in his drink. Brian started visiting more often. Sometimes he'd show up unannounced, claiming he was just in the neighborhood. He'd bring coffee, a bottle of wine, or some small gift for the kids. Always something harmless. Always a reason to linger. One night I came home late from work. The house was dark except for the flicker of the television. Sarah and Brian were on the couch, sitting close, laughing quietly. Too close. I froze for half a second, long enough to register it, too short to act. When they noticed me, they both straightened, as if the room itself had remembered its manners. "Hey, you're home early," Sarah said, smiling too wide. "Yeah," I said. Traffic was light. Brian stood up. "We were just watching that old movie we used to love in college. Remember?" I nodded. "Yeah, I remember. I remember everything." That night, in bed, I stared at the ceiling and told myself I was imagining it, that I was tired, that friends can sit close without meaning anything by it, that marriage means trusting the person beside you, even when your gut whispers otherwise. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder with every unanswered text, every late night, every new excuse that smelled rehearsed. One afternoon, I came home early from work, a rare chance to surprise my family. The house was quiet. Sarah's car was in the driveway. I walked through the kitchen, calling her name. No answer. I followed the faint sound of music down the hall to the laundry room, but it was empty. Then I noticed her phone buzzing on the counter, a message lighting up the screen. From Brian. Still thinking about last night. Can't stop smiling. I remember the exact shape of that sentence. How ordinary it looked. How final it felt. I didn't open the phone. Didn't need to. The words were enough. When Sarah came home, I didn't say anything. I watched her move around the kitchen, humming softly, setting down her bag, kissing my cheek like she always did. That familiar affection now felt like theater. Later that night, she mentioned Brian again. Casually, as if testing how much she could say before I noticed the difference. He might help me with the school fundraiser, she said. He's good with people. I nodded. Yeah, he's good at a lot of things. She didn't notice the edge in my voice, or maybe she did and chose not to. Silence has a way of protecting both liar and listener. The fundraiser came a week later. I arrived straight from work, still in my tie, my name tag clinging to my shirt. The school gym was filled with tables, balloons, polite laughter. Sarah was there, radiant under the lights, laughing at something Brian whispered in her ear. His hand brushed her shoulder. She didn't move away. I stood there, just another guest, watching the woman I loved lean into another man's breath. That was the first time the truth felt physical, like pressure behind the ribs, like drowning in a crowded room where everyone else seems to breathe fine. She saw me eventually, waved, smiled like nothing was wrong. I smiled back. My body moved on autopilot, shaking hands, nodding at small talk, pretending I didn't feel the ground shifting. Later that night at home, I tried to bring it up gently. You've been spending a lot of time with Brian lately, I said. She looked up from her phone. He's my friend. Our friend. I know, I said. It's just different. Different how? The question wasn't defensive, it was curious, like she genuinely didn't see it. Forget it, I said. I'm tired. And just like that, the truth was folded back into silence. A week passed, then 2, then 3. The distance between us grew in small, imperceptible ways. Fewer touches, fewer shared jokes, more nights when she claimed to be too tired or too busy. I started keeping track, not because I wanted to, but because obsession is what fills the space where trust used to live. Every late return, every new excuse, every unfamiliar perfume that lingered on her clothes. I became a quiet detective in my own marriage. Then came Lily's birthday. The house was full of noise, laughter, music, the smell of frosting and candles. Family, friends, neighbors. Brian was there, of course. Always there. He brought a huge box wrapped in gold paper. A drone for Michael, not even for Lily. The kind of gift that wins applause. Everyone cheered. He winked at Sarah as the kids tore into it. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the kitchen was a battlefield of paper plates and spilled soda, I went to take out the trash. The garage door was half open, moonlight spilling in through the cracks. I heard voices, whispers, laughter. Sarah's voice. Brian's. I stopped. I shouldn't have listened. I know that now, but curiosity is just pain wearing a disguise. I stepped closer. Her laughter sounded different, softer, private, like the echo of something I wasn't supposed to hear. When I pushed the door open slightly, I saw them. Not kissing, not touching, but close, too close. His hand hovering near her hip, her face tilted up toward him, eyes alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. I closed the door before they saw me. I went back inside, cut the cake, smiled for the children. No one noticed the tremor in my hands. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat in the dark living room, staring at the glow of the television I hadn't turned on. I told myself I needed proof, that I couldn't accuse without certainty. But deep down I already knew. The mind can deny. The body never does. From that moment, every sound in the house felt suspicious. Every text tone, every shower too long, every breath too quiet. I began to disappear inside my own home, moving through rooms like a ghost haunting the life he built. Sarah slept soundly beside me. I stared at the ceiling, counting lies instead of sheep. It would take me another month to act, to open the messages, to gather what I needed to confront her. But that night in the garage, that was when love ended, even if I didn't say it out loud. Sometimes betrayal doesn't announce itself. It just waits until you're quiet enough to notice it breathing beside you. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. I told myself I needed certainty. That was the lie that kept me sane. Certainty gives you permission to destroy. Doubt keeps you trapped in civility. So, for weeks I lived between the two, husband and detective, father and voyeur, a man digging his own heart out just to prove what he already knew. Sarah's phone became the border between truth and madness. She guarded it like oxygen, always within reach, always face down. When she showered, she took it with her. When she slept, it rested beneath her pillow. A fortress of glass and code, protecting the story I wasn't allowed to read. One afternoon, I found my opportunity. She'd gone out for groceries. The phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview glowed before fading. Last night was worth every risk. My hand moved on its own. I shouldn't have. I know that. But curiosity and agony often share the same impulse. The lock opened, birthday easy. The screen bloomed with conversations. Threads of laughter, small secrets, shared memories twisted into something in asterisk mate. Photos of drinks, hotel receipts, timestamps that aligned too neatly with her absences. The evidence wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The betrayal was in the tone, the shorthand language of two people who had built a world that didn't include me. There was one message that hollowed me out completely. He still doesn't know. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the amusement behind them, the casual cruelty of two people who had reduced my life to a punchline. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't shout. I just placed it back exactly where it had been and stood in the kitchen, feeling my body hum with disbelief. The hum turned to shaking, then stillness, a quiet so heavy it felt like gravity itself had doubled. For the next few days I became deliberate, every motion measured, every word rehearsed. I went to work, paid bills, laughed with the children. All the while I collected proof, bank statements, hotel confirmations, a photograph of her car parked outside a downtown inn, taken by my own trembling hand from across the street. When I confronted her, I chose calmness as my P***n. Rage would have given her something to fight against. Calm gave her nothing. We sat in the kitchen, the same place we had once planned our future. The table between us was littered with printouts, each page a wound. She stared at them for a long time, her fingers tracing the edges. No denial, no panic, just exhaustion. "How long have you known?" she asked finally. "Long enough," I said. She nodded, almost relieved. "Then you understand." Understand. The word stung. "Explain it to me," I said quietly. "It just happened," she whispered. "Brian and we didn't plan it. We were both lonely. You were distant, always working, always tired. I felt invisible. Invisible. I almost laughed. That's what I had become, yes, but not by accident. I asked, "How long?" She hesitated. Then, almost a year. A year. 12 months of laughter and lies, dinners and phone calls, mornings that started with her kissing me and ending with her meeting him. I looked at her and saw not my wife, but an actress still clutching the script she'd written. "You could have told me," I said. She met my eyes. "And destroy the family? The kids don't deserve that." There it was, the justification. The idea that deception was mercy, that her silence was sacrifice, not cowardice. "You think they deserve this instead?" I asked. Tears came then, soft and convenient. She reached across the table, fingers trembling. "David, please. We can move past this. For them. We can fix it." Fix. Another word pretending to be hope. I pulled my hand back. You want to live inside a lie because it's cheaper than the truth. Her face hardened. You'd really throw everything away? For one mistake. One mistake, I said. Mistakes end. You kept choosing this. Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, the children laughed at something on television. The sound made me ache. She stood abruptly, wiping her cheeks. You can't tell them. Not now. They're too young to understand. They already understand more than you think. Her eyes flashed. Don't you dare turn them against me. I almost admired the audacity, the way guilt had turned her into the victim of her own crime. That night, we slept in the same bed, bodies separated by a gulf of years. I didn't touch her, didn't speak. Her breathing beside me was steady, rehearsed. Mine wasn't. At dawn, I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the faint light bleeding through the curtains. Everything I'd built, every late hour, every sacrifice, had led to this, a marriage balanced on deceit. I thought about staying. For the children. For the illusion. But what kind of man teaches his son that silence is strength? Or his daughter that betrayal is forgivable? So I made a decision. Not out of anger, but survival. When she woke, I told her quietly, I'm leaving. Her eyes opened, wide and disbelieving. What? I can't live in this house anymore. And the kids? I'll take them for the weekend. After that, we'll figure out what's right. She sat up, panic blooming across her face. You're overreacting. We can work through this. No, I said. You can't work through something that rotted years ago. She stood, voice trembling with authority she no longer had. You'll ruin everything. Everything's already ruined, I said. I'm just done pretending it isn't. I left before she could answer. The morning air was cold, the sky an unbroken gray. The house looked smaller from the street, like a set piece from a life I no longer fit inside. I drove aimlessly for hours through suburbs, past the office, into open stretches of highway where the city fell away. The silence in the car was the first peace I'd felt in months. When I returned that evening, she was gone. A note on the counter read, We'll talk when you calm down. Calm. As if clarity were madness. I sat at the table, staring at the neat handwriting, the looped letters of a woman who believed control was love. That night I didn't eat, didn't sleep. I just listened to the echo of my own decision growing louder inside me. By morning it was final. I took the children to breakfast, just the three of us. Pancakes, syrup, a Saturday that felt too normal. They sensed something, of course. Children always do. Michael asked, Dad, are you and Mom okay? I looked at him, his mother's eyes, my patience, and said, Not really, but we will be. Lily reached for my hand. Are you mad at her? I hesitated. I'm sad. That's different. We ate quietly after that, the three of us orbiting the same unspoken truth. When we returned home, Sarah was waiting. She looked smaller somehow, fragile under the morning light. She asked to talk privately. I agreed. Her tone was softer this time, pleading. Don't do this to the kids. They need both of us. They'll have both of us, I said. Just not like this. She shook her head, tears glistening. Please, David. You're the one who always believed in forgiveness. I nodded. I still do. But forgiveness isn't the same as pretending. There was nothing left to say. She walked away, and I stood in the doorway, feeling the weight of 20 years press against my chest. Later that day, I started packing. Not in anger, methodically, carefully. Shirts, books, the small things that belonged unquestionably to me. Every folded item felt like a confession. When I was done, I sat on the edge of the bed, the suitcase open beside me. The room smelled faintly of her perfume, sharp and sweet, a ghost I couldn't exorcise. I thought about all the nights I'd believed love could survive anything. I was wrong. Love can survive hardship, distance, even boredom, but not mockery. When someone betrays you, they don't just break the bond. They rewrite the history that came before it. Every smile becomes evidence. Every memory turns suspect. I looked around that room one last time and realized I didn't recognize it. The photographs, the linens, the small trinkets collected over decades. All of it belonged to another life. I zipped the suitcase. The sound was louder than I expected, final and merciless. As I walked down the hall, I glanced at the children's drawings pinned to the wall. Stick figures, houses, crooked hearts. Proof of something pure. Proof of what still mattered. I wasn't leaving because I stopped loving them. I was leaving because I refused to teach them how to stay somewhere they weren't respected. And as the door closed behind me, I finally understood. The truth doesn't destroy a family. The lies do. The morning after I left, Denver looked different. Colder, wider. Like a city I'd only dreamed about but never walked through. I drove without direction, the suitcase beside me, the children's laughter still echoing faintly in my head from the day before. Every mile felt like a confession. Every stoplight, a small judgment asking if I truly had the right to begin again. I didn't stay in a hotel. I rented a small apartment on the east side, a place with peeling paint and a view of nothing in particular. It wasn't home, but it was honest. The kind of honesty that hums in the quiet, that doesn't need pretending. That first night alone was the longest of my life. The silence didn't comfort, it accused. Every object in that room seemed to ask why I'd waited so long to leave. I sat on the floor with a single lamp on, the suitcase still half open, the faint smell of detergent reminding me of her. I thought of the years I'd traded for stability, the countless small sacrifices disguised as duty. I thought about Sarah's voice, how even her apologies had sounded rehearsed. But mostly, I thought about the children. Michael's cautious intelligence, Lily's reckless laughter, and wondered what damage I had already done by staying too long in a house built on lies. I saw them again 2 days later. Sarah agreed to let me pick them up for dinner. Her tone on the phone was clipped, professional, like we were strangers negotiating custody over a shared investment. When I arrived, she met me at the door, eyes red but defiant. "Don't tell them details," she said. "They don't need to know everything." "I won't lie to them," I replied. "Then at least spare them the ugly parts." "The ugly parts," I said softly, "are what make it true." She didn't answer, just stepped aside. The kids ran to me, arms wide, questions already forming behind their eyes. Children can sense where the silence hides. They hugged me hard, as if testing whether I was still real. We drove to a small diner outside the city, one we used to visit after soccer games. The same cracked vinyl booths, the same jukebox that never worked. They ordered pancakes even though it was dinner. I let them. When Michael finally asked, "Why aren't you coming home?" I looked at him, at Lily, at the reflection of their faces in the window. "Because," I said slowly, "sometimes adults forget what love is supposed to feel like, and when they remember, it's too late to fix it." Lily frowned. "Did Mom do something bad?" I hesitated. "She did something sad," I said, "and now we all have to learn how to live with it." Michael nodded, like he understood more than I wanted him to. Lily cried quietly into her syrup. I held her hand until the tears stopped. That night, when I dropped them back at the house, Sarah was waiting on the porch. The porch light made her look smaller, older. For a second, I remembered the girl I married, the one who laughed through storms and believed love could solve everything. I almost spoke, almost said something kind, but she turned away before I could. Weeks passed. Divorce paperwork moved through lawyers like a slow, grinding machine. I signed things without reading them twice. Possessions were divided, house to her, car to me, custody split like a schedule rather than a relationship. I saw the children on weekends. At first, they were hesitant, uncertain how to exist between two lives. But time softened them. They began to laugh again, to fill the quiet spaces with the same unfiltered noise that had once filled our home. Michael helped me build shelves in the new apartment. Lily covered the fridge with drawings. Stick figures of the three of us, always smiling, always together. She never drew her mother or Brian. That told me everything. One afternoon, months later, Sarah called. Her voice was different, thin, brittle, full of attention I recognized as consequence. "Brian and I aren't together anymore," she said. I didn't ask why. She told me anyway. He said it was too much pressure, that he never meant to break up a family. I almost laughed, but something in her tone stopped me. She wasn't looking for sympathy. She was searching for absolution. I thought it would be different, she whispered. It always is, I said. Until it isn't. There was a long silence. Then she said, the kids miss you. I see them every week. I mean, they miss the way things were. So do I said. But missing doesn't rebuild anything. After that, she didn't call for a while. When she did, it was only about logistics, pickup times, school projects, dentist appointments. Her voice had become functional, stripped of emotion. I preferred it that way. I focused on the small things. Cooking dinners with the kids. Teaching Michael how to drive. Listening to Lily read aloud from her favorite books. Every moment felt sharper, more deliberate because I finally understood how fragile they were. The pain didn't vanish. It just changed shape. Some nights, I'd still wake to the phantom sound of Sarah's laughter, or Brian's name whispered through memory. But instead of anger, I felt something quieter. An acceptance that even betrayal can teach you where your limits are. One evening, nearly 7 months after I left, the divorce papers arrived finalized. A thick envelope, no ceremony. Just signatures and stamps. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat at the table, and read each page slowly. When I reached the last one, I signed my name for the final time beside hers. The ink bled slightly into the paper. It was over. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled, long and low, as if I'd been holding my breath for years. Later that week, Sarah called again. The kids asked if we could all have dinner together, she said. For closure. Closure. That word people use when they mean control. Still, I agreed for them. We met at the same restaurant where Brian used to join us for birthdays. The irony wasn't lost on me. The air smelled of fried food and nostalgia. Michael and Lily chatted about school, trying to fill the cracks. Sarah smiled too much, laughed at things that weren't funny. When the meal ended, she walked me to the parking lot. Thank you, she said softly, for not turning them against me. I looked at her. They don't need my help to see the truth. Her eyes glistened. Do you ever think about us? Every day, I said. That's how I know it's over. She nodded, wiped her cheek, and walked away. That night, back at the apartment, I sat by the window, watching the city lights pulse like distant heartbeats. The kids were asleep in the next room. Their breathing, steady and safe, filled the space that used to belong to regret. I realized then that I hadn't lost a family. I had shed a false one. Freedom doesn't feel like victory. Feels like quiet. Like standing in the ruins of something you once built and understanding it was never meant to last. Sarah's silence became consistent after that. The occasional text. The polite exchange at school events. Her face, thinner now, carried the weight of recognition. She had traded permanence for thrill and ended up with neither. As for Brian, he tried once to apologize. He sent a message. Didn't mean to hurt you. Hope you're okay. I didn't respond. Some words don't deserve to echo. Months turned into a year. The apartment became home. The kids stopped asking when I'd move back. They stopped mentioning Brian entirely. Slowly, our new life formed its own rhythm, smaller, simpler, but real. I learned to cook properly. I learned that silence can be peace instead of punishment. I learned that forgiveness isn't an act. It's a surrender. Sometimes, when I drive past the old house, I still look. The curtains are different now, the lawn unkept. The windows reflect nothing but sky. I imagine her inside, older, lonelier, maybe still searching for the laughter that used to fill those rooms. I don't hate her anymore. Hatred keeps you tied to the past. I let go the moment I realized the truth. I wasn't leaving her behind. I was leaving behind the man who tolerated less than he deserved. The kids are grown now. Michael wants to study architecture. Lily paints. They still call me every night before bed. And in their voices I hear the only verdict that matters. Maybe I wasn't a perfect husband. Maybe no one is. But I was honest. And honesty, I've learned, is the only kind of love that survives its own collapse. So, was I wrong to leave? Was I cruel to end what was already dying? Sometimes I still wonder. But when I see my children laugh without fear, when I walk through a home that holds no secrets, I think, maybe this is what truth sounds like. Maybe it sounds like peace.